I'm not sure if you saw this. I think it was lost in the shuffle, but Duncan Keith tripped and fell and stumbled on his own conscience. Now, first off, I want to give you the context here. Duncan Keith, who is a part of the system in Chicago that favored certain players over others, showed up in camp to Edmonton acting like he's been allowed to act his entire career this season, which is more important than everybody else. He's Mr. Character, Mr. Leadership. Edmonton media, the Oilers organization, they all touted his leadership skills and his character. Veteran presence, what they needed on the blue line. He shows up unvaccinated and then later told everyone he didn't know about the allegations brought forward by John Doe 1 in the lawsuit in May until he was filed. Now, why do I bring up unvaccinated? Well, let me come back to that.
Okay.
They ignored the unvaccinated thing in Edmonton, by the way, with, he'll get to it. He'll fly south, get the Johnson. Well, no big deal. He's only going to miss the first week of camp.
And then when he got it, it was, well, at least he got it.
Yeah. And he missed the first 4 days, I think. 4 days of camp? I don't even know. And when the allegations were brought up, he, along with every Blackhawks player from that team still currently playing, said, yeah, we didn't know. And then the Oilers media said, yeah, he didn't know. What was he even going to do? Poor Duncan.
And if he did know, he would have leadershiped at the problem.
He would have done something. He's Duncan Keith, said the media. And I have to call this out because honestly, we all saw the video that was circulated. You all know who I'm talking about. And it's hard for me.
I don't know what
you don't know what I'm talking about.
What you're talking about.
Okay, I'm going to call them out. Gene Principe and Mark Spector put out a video.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And it's on Sportsnet. And it was, Duncan Keith he told us he didn't know. He would have done something. There's actually like a screenshot of it that's been circulated. I think the video has been taken down.
I saw the screenshot.
Yeah.
I didn't see the video.
No accountability, no pushback. They don't push him on it. Okay, well, he's Duncan Keith. This guy is above reproach. Nick Boynton, Brent Sopel, both pretty key members of that Blackhawks team, both said everybody knew and this is disgusting. Paul Vincent, it got around. 2014, a former teammate of Kyle Beach chases him around the ice and calls him the homophobic F word.
Mm-hmm.
But Duncan Keith, along with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, did not know anything about what happened in 2009. Okay. Possible. Not plausible. Possible. Not plausible. And here's where you lose me forever and ever. After the Jenner and Block report was issued, the media turned to Duncan Keith and asked him about it again. And he said, well, I wasn't even interviewed. That's not a direct quote, I'm paraphrasing. I wasn't interviewed for it. What he did not say that night was that he turned down the request to be interviewed this summer. And I would like to define the word lie to you, as in that was a lie. A false statement made with the deliberate intent to deceive, an intentional untruth. He did not tell you that he turned down the request. He merely said, well, I wasn't interviewed. So you lied. The reason he told you that, the reason I told you that, was Duncan Keith lied, if indirectly, to everyone. He misrepresented the role he refused to play in the process of a sexual assault cover-up. Mr. Character, Mr. Leadership.
Yeah, but now he's sorry.
And here's the part where, this is the best part, Steve. It's where he tripped over and he found his conscience because, you know what? He said yes, or a couple days ago, Ryan Rishaug tweeted out, we all saw, if he could do it again, he would do it differently. As in, he'd have taken the interview with Jenner and Block. Why, Duncan? Why would you have done that? You told us you had nothing to add. What would you have added to the investigation? That you knew nothing? Hey guys, it's Duncan. I was the assistant captain, and I had no idea what the guys in the locker room were talking about ever. What do you think now that you could have added to the summer, that you added to this investigation this summer, that you didn't think that you had this summer? What do you think now that coming forward and talking to them would have done? And by the way, the investigation's over, so that option's not even on the table. But what is it now that you have to say? Duncan, why don't you come out and say it? Duncan, and go ahead, Steve.
Well, let me throw this out there. Okay, so do it. Do it. Contact Jenner and Block and say, I want to talk. Do it.
I want to add to this.
Do it. Don't say you wish you did it. Do it.
Good point.
Do it.
I'm sure they'd be like, okay.
Call them up. Google that shit.
Put an
Call them,
addendum
do it.
on it. Yeah. Here's what's happening. The Blackhawks of 09-10 were among the most successful organizations in the NHL at the time, and for probably the better part of the next decade. They were also the most poisonous. Let's not forget this is the organization that employed Bill Peters and stomped all over Akeem Aliu's career at the same time that Kyle Beach's career was being derailed. We shouldn't forget that. But if you were a star in that organization, you were treated well. You were treated above, your needs came first, and you had no challenges except for what was on the ice. And before I get the internet on me going, oh, this is crazy old Adam making shit up, you need to look at Jonathan Toews' response to John McDonough and Stan Bowman. He said they were both great men who did great things for him. Of course he said that. That's exactly what happened. They made life comfy for Toews, for Kane, for Keith, and probably a couple other players. And of course, those guys love Bowman and McDonough because the red carpet was rolled out for them. Of course, Toews, Kane, Keith have a ton of respect for them because those guys bent over backwards for the Stars. And of course, Toews, Kane, Keith have zero perspective and feel zero responsibility towards this incident because they've never had to be responsible or been held responsible for anything other than put puck in net. Mm-hmm. Put puck in net. That is all you have to be responsible for. And I've got news for you. And this is for hockey players who might listen to this as well. That ain't real life. That's not how it works. Despite what the Chicago Blackhawks had Duncan Keith and Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews believe. But Duncan Keith doesn't live in real life. He's never had to. Until now. When he tripped and fell and found his conscience. So, Duncan, whether you had information to offer or not, you made a choice that it was not worth your time. The sexual assault of a former teammate was not important enough for you to even pick up the phone. So I'm glad you've tripped and found your conscience because you know what? It shows you've grown. But I want to shout out a couple French radio interviews, and I want to shout out a couple listeners here. Alex in my DMs specifically. Maxime Lapierre said that Jonathan Toews, who he has respected his entire career, no longer has his respect, and that is as a captain at that time, had a duty to lead his team and help this player. Antoine Roussel called Toews a great leader on ice, but a small human being on Quebec radio this week. This shit never makes it over in English radio. I'm surprised we don't translate more.
It really is incredible.
Duncan Keith is in that mix. Toews is the captain. I get it. But I'm glad that Duncan Keith tripped over and found his conscience, shows growth. It's less than the bare minimum right now. As Steve said, he could call Jenner and Block and have the interview anytime. It does show that he's capable of growth, though. I think that's important. And I think we ought to acknowledge it. You'll never forget, Duncan. If you're Duncan Keith, you will never forget this. How you turn this down. No matter how many cups you walk away with, no matter how great it will be eventually to go into the Hall of Fame, which you undoubtedly will, Duncan Keith. Mm-hmm. When the stakes truly got high, you, Toews, and Kane backed down. Not once, but twice. You knew about this 10 years ago, because again, I think it's possible that you didn't know, but I don't think it's plausible. So I'm going to go ahead and editorialize and say, I don't think so. I don't believe that. Maybe you're a great leader on the ice, but off the ice, where it actually matters, you are not. And I hope that changes. Until then, you've shown yourself and you are lacking. So if we could knock off the great leader shit and the great character shit for a little bit, you showed up to camp unvaccinated despite knowing what the policies were.
You huffed and puffed about it.
Huffed and puffed about it, and finally they twisted your arm so you could get the vaccine. And the whole point was just to protect your teammates. And really the fans at large. That's the whole point.
Two of whom can't play hockey this season because of COVID.
One of them is your teammate. Josh Archibald, right?
Josh Archibald and also Alex Stalock.
Oh, right.
Who often gets lost in the mix. Yeah.
I forgot about Alex Dale. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
So you, Duncan Keith, miss part of training camp on your first season with a new team. Mr. Character, Mr. Leadership, because of that. And you also couldn't find time in your busy summer schedule to pick up the phone and talk to Jenner and Block for 20 minutes. You have been seen. You are lacking. Do something about it.